getting into the big picture. There's a couple weeks left to go. The conference tournaments are going to be here before we know it, which are going to be kind of wild in their own right. They always are, but this year we have a different looking Big Ten. We have a different looking Big 12 and an SEC. So those conference tournaments are certainly going to have a different kind of vibe than ever before, as will the NCAA tournament, because these teams certainly had much different roads to get to the field of 68 than ever before. With that said, you look at some of the coaching jobs right now, and let's take a look around at Coach of the Year with a couple weeks left to go. When you just look at the best guy, the guy that's been the most impressive, the guy that should win the Coach of the Year, Matt McCall, I know you and I have talked about Todd Golden in the past and the fact that Florida's had so much success, the fact that, there was a lot of off-the-court stuff. Had it not been for that, a lot of people might consider him for Coach of the Year. Maybe they still do because he's been cleared and he's still coaching. But in your opinion right now, as we're heading into Valentine's Day tomorrow, which means we're right there middle of February, who is your Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in the conversation. There's no question about it. To see where that program is and, the wins, coming out of the Tennessee loss, to be able to perform and play like they did against Auburn on the road in that type of environment in the jungle. And it's like, okay, they played on Saturday. Now they're going to turn around and play against a pesky, Mississippi State team. And, they on the road and they found a way to win that game. But I don't think we're talking enough about Dusty May. I mean, 19-5 overall. And you look where this program was. They fired one of their own. We're talking about one of the greatest players that ever played at the University of Michigan. And the program was in a little bit of shambles last year. The Dougie McDaniel suspension. He was only suspended for road games. He could play in home games and not play on the road. They won 8 games. They were not in a good place. And you talk about turnarounds and flips. And I would say Pat Kelsey's in the same mix. But Dusty May right now is a tie for first place in the Big Ten. To me, the job that he's done, changing the trajectory of that program from last year to this year, bringing in the right guys, bringing in the right transfers. I mean, you can make a case that Danny Wolf's the best power forward in the entire country. Vlad Golden got off to a rough start in his tenure there at Michigan, has completely turned that around and is playing like one of the best front court players in the entire country. I think the job that Dusty's doing, he's got to be in the category. I mean, 19-5 overall, 11-2 in the league, in the second best league in the conference. I think that's where I would lean towards right now.
Well, he's just proven that he's just an elite coach. I mean, what he did at Florida Atlantic was mind-blowing. I mean, that's a program that I've been around. I went to a Conference USA school, and I know all too well about their facilities and their history and their lack thereof. And the fact that he went in there and took that team to the Final Four was a modern-day miracle. And, to take over Michigan and take over for a guy that's as big of a brand name and a part of the history and lore as anybody ever has been with the program, I think is remarkable. So I don't disagree that Dusty May should be right up there.
And Childish, the turnaround from one year to the next, like it's
Sure.
year one. And year one, whatever job you take is difficult. I don't care. I don't care if you take over a good situation. I don't care if you take over a difficult situation. Year one is hard because you're trying to figure out the place. And especially with the year that they had last year to what they're doing now. That's why, I'm looking at the turnaround where it's like from one year to the next, who's doing the best job. That's to me a National Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pat Kelsey. Certainly in that conversation, Louisville was horrid before he got there. John, how about you? Who's your National Coach of the Year right now?
I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna go Bruce Pearl. You got the best team in the best league, arguably the best league kind of lineup ever, right? Of teams like in that league. I mean, they could get potential 13 teams into the tournament. So I don't know when the voting is, but if Bruce Pearl can kind of keep Auburn at the top, there's a big game Saturday, obviously, and they can win the SEC. We've got to. I feel like you got to give it to him. they're just that good, and the coaching job that he's done lately over the last few years, I think it's time. I want to say he won it a couple years back, if I can't remember, but I think Bruce Pearl's a coach of the year if we're just talking about winning right at a high level. And then I would say maybe a guy that's underrated. I mean, we talked about it earlier. I think Penny, the job Penny's doing,
Hold
he's a
on to
little
that.
underrated.
All right,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Give me your underrated.
You
Go
go to
ahead.
the next question.
It's the next segment? Oh, I thought we were doing both. Okay, yeah, no. So yeah, I'm going Bruce Pearl, and then I like what Patino's doing as well. I mean, they were not in the top 25. Now they're a potential top 10 team sitting at the top of the Big East. So, Patino's doing a great job as well.
Rick Pitino has completely kind of changed the swag of the Northeast of college basketball. Yeah. It reminds me of when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid and the Northeast had that grit, and you had, St. John's and Georgetown and, all these beautiful, Catholic private school programs. We lost that for a long time. St. John's was average as the day is long. I mean, Georgetown's been in the abyss for a while. The fact that Pitino has made college basketball for the home team in Madison Square Garden that sexy again, and now we're looking at the Johnnies as a team that, we think can get to the second weekend and maybe beyond, that's pretty cool. So I think Pitino's got to be in the mix as well. But here's what I'll say about Bruce Pearl. And I would say Bruce Pearl as well, and I know it's the obvious one because they've been number one. But, they were preseason outside of the top 10. I think they were 11 in the AP poll. So they've been a little better than people thought. But here's what's always amazing to me. I kind of think of the totality of it. And the fact that we have number one versus number two this weekend. And that game is so big. And I bet your ratings are going to be enormous. The city of Birmingham, here's what's wild. It rates the highest in the country for college football ratings, period. As far as city, per capita and all that stuff, population size, I promise you that basketball game is going to rate right up there with any Alabama or Auburn football game all season long. I promise you that. That's what Bruce and that's what Nate Oates have done, making basketball matter in the state of Alabama. But here's the wild thing about it. I work for SiriusXM, and Bruce Pearl and I used to do shows together, like after the games like this, like an after dark kind of show. And I remember specifically, we were doing a show, and he said to me, Jay Jacobs called, and Jay was the athletic director at Auburn at the time. And he said, Jay is interested. And at that time, remember, Bruce had a show cause. Bruce was out, had the Aaron Kraft barbecue, which looks ridiculous, with nowadays in the NIL and all that stuff. But that got him kicked out of college basketball. He was doing radio and TV for a little while, which is crazy to think. But, the Auburn job, Bruce was not, he had baggage. So the Auburn job, when he took it, I mean, Bruce Pearl almost got Tennessee to the Final Four. He was within a little layup of Ohio State. Remember, in the Elite Eight, they were right there. This guy kind of gets fired in disgrace. He asked me, he's like, can I win at Auburn? And I'm sure he asked everybody that he ever met if he could win there because, and I said, you're Bruce Pearl. To me, he's P.T. Barnum. He's the kind of guy that not only is he a great coach, but he can push all the other buttons that are going to make that program that much bigger. Before the jungle became the jungle, he was in the crowd. He's the guy that takes off his shirt and paints it and, does all these things in a very genuine way. He gives the personal touch where when he's around you, you kind of are like, is this guy BS? He's not. And I think that's what's so incredible. And you see what he's done. I mean, what's so wild about it? Bruce Pearl, whether you agree with his opinions or not, I don't see a basketball coach that's more, outspoken about what he believes than Bruce Pearl. And with that said, it seems like, it kind of people feed off of it in the area, and the basketball team seems to as well. Jedi Broom has been on that team for a long time. He's been going to SEC Media Days now for seemingly, it feels like a decade. You know what I mean? Like, they got old. He's added good parts. They've got a good NIL. What he has built blows my mind. The fact that we have 1 versus 2 this weekend blows my mind. So it's almost like a career thing, but what Bruce has done, I got to give him Coach of the Year.